The Buccaneers are reportedly interested in tight end Kyle Rudolph, and we go into the trenches on both sides of the ball as we continue our Players to Watch in Training Camp series. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, joined by my esteemed co-host, one Mr. David Harrison. You can find all of his written work over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. Check out mine over at SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And of course, follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
Yeah, we thank you again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first view or listen every day. Today's episode brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And for veteran tight end Kyle Rudolph, his next game may be starting in Dallas because he may become a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, James. That, according to my good friend, who doesn't actually know me, from ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, who tweeted, quote, free agent tight end Kyle Rudolph has interest from multiple teams ahead of training camp. The hashtag Bucs have been involved, I'm told, and a reunion with the hashtag Vikings is not off the table. This situation should crystallize sometime before camp opens. End quote. James, other than your thoughts on the beautiful use of the word crystallize, what do you think of the possibility of Kyle Rudolph, the former Viking and now former Giants tight end, joining tight end number 1 Cam Brate, future tight end number 1 Cade Otton, and tight end number 2 or 3 Goedeke?
I actually would like this move. He's a veteran presence. He's a reliable target. He's not going to cost a lot of money. And look, since 2016, when tight ends are targeted, the highest passer rating has gone to number 1, Hunter Henry, number 2, Travis Kelce, number 3, Kyle Rudolph. This is a guy for his career is averaging 10 yards per reception, a couple of down years last year with the Giants. That could be because it was the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. A little bit of a down year before that with the Minnesota Vikings, but let's face it, the Vikings weren't very good. Kirk Cousins isn't very good. But other than that, he's been a reliable guy around, 50 plus targets per season, 10 yards per reception, in the 5 to 8 touchdowns per season range. This is a guy that I think would help the tight end group. Is he going to be the tight end 1? No. Is he going to be the tight end 2? Probably not, but he is a guy that you can put out on the field on third down. You can put out on the field in goal-to-go situations. As the Saints well know, he can come down with the football in the end zone. He's going to catch pretty much anything that you put in his range. He's coming off of a season just a few years ago where he had an 85.7% catch percentage. He's reliable. He's smart. He's savvy. I would like this move.
Yeah, so this is where my co-host takes his victory lap, because if you go back to our earlier conversations of potential tight end additions to this room, Kyle Rudolph was one that he himself championed, Mr. Yarcho. So I definitely called you Yarcho. So anyway, I give you your flowers for this report. So now I'm just going to need Jeremy Fowler to break the news that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are trading for Dallas Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz for a 7th round pick. Conditional 7th round pick, which may be a not pick at all. That'd be great. So that's not going to happen.
If that happens, I would prefer that move to Kyle Rudolph because I think Dalton Schultz is a better tight end. But the Cincinnati, Ohio product, Kyle Rudolph, would help this tight end group.
No, absolutely. But look, here's my favorite part about what you just said about the prospect of Kyle Rudolph joining the depth chart, and that is that he's not tight end number 1. If it's not going to be Cade Otton, it needs to be Cam Brate. And more than just because since our last episode, James, and I wish I could do like the whole like flashback thing right now, where I called Cam Brate the most friend zone tight end in the National Football League. I've done a little bit more thinking. I've done a little bit more writing. I've done a little bit more research. You understand that Cam Brate in the 2016 NFL season had, I think it was over 600 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers reward him by drafting O.J. Howard in the first round of the very next NFL draft and tendering a 1-year contract to Mr. Cam Brate. That's how they rewarded him for that amazing, that very solid tight end season. The very next season, Cam Brate, that was by the way, 2016, the only season Cam Brate ever started double-digit games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his career. The very next season, O.J. Howard's on the team. Cam Brate starts 5 games. So once again, he's back down to below double-digit starting games, has more yards than O.J. Howard, and again has 6 touchdowns. That time, the Buccaneers reward him with a 6-year contract. It's amazing. It's great, which is why, again, Cam Brate is such a fan favorite for the squad. But look, Cade Otton comes in, Rob Gronkowski retires, and all of a sudden now everybody's expecting Otton to eventually become tight end number 1 in Tampa. And I get it. The guy's young. He's athletic. He's got a lot of talent. I'm all about it. But there's a sentimental value here. Cam Brate needs to be tight end number 1 again, at least for a little bit. Let's just give him a little bit. So Kyle Rudolph comes in. He's got to be tight end number 2. And basically the assumption is that while Cade Otton gets fully recovered and then gets in NFL shape, gets up to speed with the scheme and with his quarterback and everything else, that Kyle Rudolph comes in and is a solid number 2. And then while Cade Otton is climbing the depth chart, he's first got to climb over Kyle Rudolph to be tight end 2 before he can then climb over Cam Brate to become tight end number 1. And honestly, I don't hate it if it takes Cade Otton until this time next year to be tight end number 1 if we get good Cam Brate and we get Cam Brate for 17 games into the playoffs and a solid season. I mean, look, I could look at Cam Brate today and say 600-700 yards, 6 touchdowns. Yes, I could absolutely see Cam Brate turning in that type of a campaign for the Buccaneers. Cade Otton or no Cade Otton, but putting Kyle Rudolph on the field with him only forces defense to pay attention to another player, because even though Kyle has been a little down here the last 3 years or so, and the age and the wear and tear certainly starting to show, he is still a guy that you have to respect. You can't just leave him open on the 3-point line and expect nothing to happen if he's on the team.
Are you saying that you want to make Tampa Brate again?
I do. I want to make Tampa Brate again. Absolutely. I also want to make my bank account Brate again. And I would like to make our listeners' bank accounts Brate again. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. Then we're going to talk about some players that we want to see in the trenches during training camp and the preseason. We're going to do so thanks to our friends who can help your pockets become Brate again, BetOnline.net, because they are your number 1 source for all your betting needs and sports information. You can find all your latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball activities. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your podcasts and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2 of the Locked On Bucs podcast. We thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast first listen or your first view every single day. Back to our training camp series. We're going to finish up the offense, 3 offensive linemen to look for, and then we're going to flip over in the final segment of today's episode, and we're going to talk about 3 defensive linemen we're trying to watch and why we're looking forward to watching and why. And James, I will kick things off on the offensive line with a player that I already know you're surprised is on my list, and other people are probably going to be surprised is on my list as well, and that is right tackle Tristan Wirfs. Why is Tristan Wirfs on my list? Well, because when he got injured in mid-January, I think pretty much everybody agrees that, among other things, there are some other contributing factors, right? Chris Godwin's injury, Antonio Brown's jumping jack antics, Antoine Winfield Jr. not tying himself to Cooper Kupp on the final play of the game, and some other things. It basically spelled doom for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like the Los Angeles Rams, listen, all the credit in the world. Put your Lombardi in your team headquarters with all the pride in the world. Matt Stafford, keep doing the cell phone commercials where you kind of take vague shots to the Detroit Lions, but not really. All those things. Happy for you. But let's be real here. Given the way that game ended, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and again, these are alternate dimension conversations, but if all these things don't happen, it's fair to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers probably pull out that win, go on to defeat the San Francisco 49ers, go on to beat the Cincinnati Bengals and hoist back-to-back Lombardis. And now Tom Brady comes back. We don't have the retirement drama that we had. Rob Gronkowski, honestly, probably comes back to help Tom win back-to-back-to-back titles and just add one more legendary notch into the legendary belt that he's already going to wear. So why is Tristan Wirfs on that list? Because that has nothing to do with this season. That's last season. Well, because if the Buccaneers are going to be as successful as everybody thinks they could be this year, Tristan Wirfs is obviously going to be a very big part of that. I want to see just how well he's doing with that injury recovery. I want to see what he looks like as much as we can. I don't know if the Buccaneers are really going to roll him out there all that much, but I want to see as much as we can out of him to make sure that our prized all-pro caliber right tackle that's actually getting some all-pro recognition, unlike some previous all-pro caliber linemen that the Buccaneers have had, is in tip-top shape.
While I understand that train of thought, and that's kind of, even though I said, I'm surprised that he's on your list, that's kind of the direction I figured you were going, because it is important for Tristan Wirfs to come back from the injury, be back to 100%, be that all-pro caliber tackle. When I take a look at the offensive line situation for the Buccaneers, and I'm power ranking in order the guys that I want to watch, or the guys that I feel that it's important to watch, all the way down to the least important, Tristan Wirfs is at the very bottom of that list for me. I feel if Tristan Wirfs is on the field, he's going to do Tristan Wirfs things and he's fine. I know he's even a 75% Tristan Wirfs is probably still going to be the best offensive lineman that the Buccaneers have. I personally am far more interested in watching some of these offensive linemen that are competing to replace guys like Ali Marpet, guys like Alex Kappa, to fortify that line in front of Tom Brady. So the number one guy on my list, number two on this one, is going to be the player that they traded for. It's going to be Shaq Mason. How does he fit into what the Buccaneers do offensively? We know he's protected Tom Brady in the past, but that was a different system. I get that this is kind of a hybrid offense between what the Patriots did and what Tom Brady has done his entire career and what Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich have put together. But how does he fit in with this offense? How does he gel with his new line mates? How is he working with with Ryan Jensen and with Tristan Wirfs on either side of him? How does that all fit together? So he's a guy that I'm really keen on watching. And, I feel that the interior of the line at this stage is more important to pay attention to than the edges.
No, I agree. I agree with that sentiment as well. Anyway, Shaq Mason, obviously a great player to look for. I'm also going to be looking for Luke Getakee from Central Michigan, the former tackle turned guard. And listen, I think right now most people kind of have Aaron Stinnie penciled in as that other starting guard opposite Shaq Mason, but the rookie, there are some who are predicting that the rookie could make a push for that position and certainly challenge him. And look, PFF, I know a lot of people have some varying thoughts on PFF, but if you look at the two players side by side, PFF in Gedake's college career gave him an 81.4 overall grade, 81 run blocking grade, and a 74.3 pass blocking grade, whereas Stinnie gets a 57.7, 60, and 23.6, which is not very good. So again, I would argue that Aaron Stinnie's blocking is probably better than the red zone, and the Bucs have a Super Bowl trophy to prove it. But the bottom line is Getakee comes in with a very polished blocking history. He's got a very successful career behind him, granted not for one of the bigger programs in college football, which is why his stock kind of took a dip a little bit. But when you look at the mechanics and you look at the ability, more strength than you need agility moving from tackle to guard, but he's longer. He's already a little bit bigger size-wise. Now, how much of that is muscle, how much of that is girth is going to be a little bit of a question, but I don't think this is as decided a camp battle that as some people would have us believe.
Yeah, and Goedeke is definitely one of the guys that was on my list. Again, going back to the interior of the line, the competition there, how they fit in, because you're replacing two key members of the offensive line. So the competition between Aaron Stinnie and Goedeke is going to be vital. Whoever wins that job has to legitimately earn it. Like you mentioned, Stinnie is a Super Bowl starting guard. And all due respect to him, we've kind of assumed that he's going to be the starter. Getakee is a behemoth of a human being. He's going to be out there mauling guys. I'm pretty sure he said something to the effect after he was drafted that he likes to just rip guys' heads off. So That's something that is going to be key in that competition. And it's all about the balance. How many times, David, have you and I talked about offensive lines, and we've talked about how it's not the individuals. It's like an orchestra, and it's how all the different pieces play together. All of these offensive linemen are like different groups of instruments in an orchestra, and they all have their jobs, but it's about the flow of all 5 of them together. So which 5 are going to emerge as the ones that work best together, that trust one another? Because you're asking for 60% of a returning line to trust 40% of newcomers. It's going to be tough. It's going to be an uphill climb. It's going to be a battle. And one other guy real quick that I would like to mention is Robert Hainsey. Look, we know Ryan Jensen played most of last year injured. So Robert Hainsey's continued development, not only at center, but being one of those versatile guys that can move to guard if they need him to. It's going to be important to keep an eye on him, because given that Jensen is coming off not just one, but a couple of pretty significant injuries, he may end up being called upon if Jensen goes down. I realize Brate basically told Jensen, suck it up, you're playing, I need you in front of me. You're going to have to find a way for, if you're Tom Brady, to trust Robert Hainsey in case he is thrust into that starting job. And we need to see the development from him to show that he is a starting caliber center, because they don't have an Ali Marpet anymore that they can slide over if they need to. It's Jensen, it's Hainsey, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing on Getakee as well. I mean, the Buccaneers love using, a 6 lineman as a eligible receiver, as kind of, put him in that tight end position. They're there just to block. I mean, Gedake's got tackle experience from college. He's got guard experience now, being trained as a guard for the Bucs. I mean, don't be surprised if you see him, even if he doesn't get the starting position with Aaron Stinnie, maybe he comes in and plays that eligible receiver role there as a blocker. I know Josh Wells has done that. And honestly, even if Luke gets the starting job, I don't know, James. I mean, this team is creative enough. I could see them have a package where Luke kicks outside in a tight end slot, and then Aaron Stinnie comes inside. I just don't think Aaron Stinnie really is equipped to do that eligible receiver shtick. But that might be a little far, because again, you do need that continuity and that 5 guys working as one. So that might be a little on the fringe there. But I mean, look, again, if Goedeke doesn't get the starting job, I still think you're going to see plenty of him in the 2022 season.
Absolutely. And coming up in just a moment, we are going to switch sides of the ball. We're staying in the trenches, and we're going to start talking about the defensive linemen that we're looking forward to watching in training camp. But first, if you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. Now, Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Hindsight is always 20/20, and you can't change the past. But what if you could get a little help from your future self? Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little cash. Now you can with Dave. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, catch up on bills, whatever the case may be. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There's no interest, no credit check needed, and millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app in the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Future you will thank you. Wrapping things up here on a Monday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And we're flipping over to the defense, David. It's everybody's favorite. Everyone loves the defense because we love the big hits. We love the interceptions. We love the fumbles. But it starts in the trenches. So the defensive linemen that we are keeping an eye on in training camp, I'm going to start it off with the obvious selection. It's Logan Hall. We have heard heaps and heaps of praise about Logan Hall from the offseason workouts, the mini camps, the OTAs, all of it. We've heard Warren Sapp talk about how he has the it factor. We've heard coaches talk about how great he's been. It's time to watch all of that, come together, lining up there with Vita Vea, getting the pass rush, being able to open up some holes by occupying multiple blockers at once, freeing up Devin White or Levante David or any of the edge rushers to come in and get after the quarterback. I want to see what kind of motor this kid has. I want to see how hard he pushes, how strong he is, whether or not he's the kind of guy that's going to be able to impose his will on an opposing offensive lineman. Because when it comes to this Buccaneers defense, so much of their success is predicated on getting pressure after the quarterback. And Todd Bowles is really good about drawing up different ways to get that pressure, but it starts up front. That's why Vita Vea is such a vital piece to this defense. That's why Ndamukong Suh was so helpful to this defense. Now it's time for Logan Hall to step up and be that next big piece that the Buccaneers can rely on for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years to be able to help generate that pressure on opposing quarterbacks, force them into mistakes, force them into being sacked. I'm excited to watch this kid because, you know, that's their top pick. He's not a first rounder. That's their top pick this year. So he needs to be a guy that pans out, and it's going to start by watching him in training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very excited about what Logan Hall is going to potentially bring to the field. And listen, James, I need 3 sacks from Logan Hall in his rookie season. How does that sound to you? 3 sacks from Logan Hall this rookie season.
I'll take it.
Do you know who the last rookie was? Defensive lineman, the last rookie defensive lineman for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to have 3 sacks or more?
Gerald McCoy.
No. Howard Jones.
Holy moly.
In 2015, so actually not that long ago, but Howard Jones, 2015, 5 sacks from the right defensive end position is the last time that a Buccaneers rookie defensive lineman had 3 or more sacks. Do you know who is the record holder for the most sacks on the Buccaneers defensive line in their rookie season? It happened in 1992, and it was 10 sacks. The only one.
I have no idea.
Santana Dotson.
Okay.
Shout out to Pro Football Reference for all of that, and Greg Auman for some of the side lessons he's given us on how to navigate Pro Football Reference over the years. So the reason I say that we need 3 or more sacks from Logan Hall, James Yarcho, I almost said Yarcho again. What is wrong with me today?
How long have you known me?
is because Ndamukong Suh over the last 2 years, James, has turned in 6 sacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from that right defensive end position. Akiem Hicks in the last 2 years has turned in 3.5 sacks himself from the defensive line. Now, granted, he was playing a little bit of tackle, a little bit of end for the Chicago Bears. So if Akiem Hicks can come in, and by the way, he is my next player to watch. So he's the second player to watch on our list for the defensive line group is Akiem Hicks. We assume that Akiem Hicks probably going to be right end number 1, right on the depth chart, if you want to call it that. But he and Logan Hall are going to mix it up a little bit like Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, and JPP did last year. You're going to see a combination of both. I think you're going to see more Logan Hall in his rookie season than we saw of JTS in his rookie season. But that'll be to be determined. Plus, you can get some 4-down lineman sets, maybe get a little bit faster up there if you want to, stuff like that. But if Akiem Hicks can bring that consistency, 3.5 sacks over the last 2 years, in each of the last 2 years, rather, 2020 and 2021, and if Logan Hall can bring 3, then at least from a sack perspective, you're getting 6.5 sacks. That's an improvement over Ndamukong Suh. And I think that's what a lot of Buccaneers fans are going to be wondering this season is you let Ndamukong Suh walk away. Don't know where he's going to play just yet. Browns are a rumor. Raiders are a rumor. I would go to the Raiders if I was him, just for what it's worth. You need to come away with more than 6 sacks, or at least 6. If you get 6 sacks and you have a young future guy, Logan Hall, and he flashes, then I think people will still be happy. But I think if you come away with 5, 4, 3 sacks from that right defensive end position, and you don't get better up front from a pass rush perspective, I think a lot of people are going to wonder if Ndamukong Suh or letting him walk out the door was a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And we know that the majority of the sacks on this team are going to come from the edge spots. They're going to come from blitzing linebackers, blitzing safeties. That's the way this defense is set up. We know Vea is going to get some. Hicks is probably going to get some. Hall is probably going to get some. But the vast majority are coming from other spots, and it's because of those down linemen that they get the opportunity to do so. So I love kind of where you're going with that. And I do think it's really important to watch the way Akiem Hicks takes to this role on the other side of Vita Vea, because, I mean, look, I talked about how we're changing 40% of the offensive line. We're changing 67% of the defensive line this year if you assume that the majority of snaps are going to go to Hall and Hicks over my third guy to watch, who's kind of been the unsung hero of the defensive line for quite a few years. And that, of course, is William Gholston. Gholston, one of the best run stuffers on this team, doesn't get a lot of sacks, doesn't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback, except for a few years ago when, you know, the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl and William Gholston had the highest quarterback pressure percentage rate on the team. Just saying. But he doesn't get the praise. He doesn't get the limelight. He doesn't get the attention that his play typically warrants. So how much of it is going to be Gholston? How much of it is going to be Hicks? How much of it is going to be Hall? These three guys are going to kind of be in a little bit of an odd rotation, seeing where they fit in, where they line up. We know Vita Vea is going to have a play or two off here and there. How is the defensive line going to look without him on the field? Because now you don't have Sue to fall back on in those situations. So this entire defensive line is going to be so crucial and so critical to the success of the Buccaneers, that the way that they're all going to fit in with all these new, these new players, these new roles that they're going to have to fit into, there's no other way to say it. And I realize I sound like a broken record, but it's crucial. There's no way the defense succeeds if these linemen don't get it together.
Yeah, I like Will Gholston being added to this list. A long, undervalued, and underrated member of this Buccaneers defensive line, has been consistently producing for the Bucs, James, almost as long as he's had me blocked on Twitter. So that's an interesting fact that some of our listeners might be interested to learn.
Maybe you should pull Ohio State rival. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for the record, it was before any type of media venture I got involved in. It was very early in my Twitter days, and I definitely said some disparaging things about Michigan State. That's why he blocked me. So just a couple of clarifying facts. So Howard Jones, not technically, I guess, his rookie season, his first year on an active NFL roster, 2015. I think he was with the Steelers before that, like 2013, 2014. So technically not a rookie. Vita Vea, as a rookie, had 3 sacks. So, but we're looking for more than 3 sacks, right? Which is why Vita Vea didn't make it. And just so you know, Gerald McCoy, 2010, 3 sacks as a rookie for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So some clarifying data there to wrap up this segment.
All right. With that, we are going to get out of here. We will have linebackers and corners coming up on tomorrow's episode, but we want to thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen. The Locked On NFL podcast, our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason does not mean a break in the action. If you have questions or topics, or if you want to contribute to our players to watch in training camp series, you could do so by leaving us a voicemail at 813-444-5841. Or send us an email to lockedonbucspodcast@gmail.com. To check out everything that David is writing, go to bucksgameday.com. Check out everything I'm writing at bucksnation.com. And of course, follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucks, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. And we thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.